Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, The Forces of Evil. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In our program, The Forces of Evil, we're looking at the dark side. We're looking at the evil forces which affect our world. These forces which swerve human beings from fulfilling the very purpose of their existence here. We were created by Allah to worship Him. Fundamental. This is the basic reason for our creation. Allah states it very clearly in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the jinn or humankind except for my worship. That's why we're here, to worship God. In worshiping God, we earn for ourselves the place for which we are to be in the world to come. We were created in paradise. We were created for paradise. But this world is the world of the passage. This is where we have to go through. This is the journey that we have to take to get back to paradise. The forces of evil block that path. They sink our ships. We have to be very, very careful. If we drown in this world of corruption and sin, then we have nothing in the next but pain and suffering. This world, as the Prophet ﷺ said, is a prison for the believers. Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min. But it is paradise for the disbelievers. وَجَنَّةُ الْكَافِرِ. Why? Because for the believer, he or she must control their desires. And the things which play on their desires, they must control it. And submit their wills to God alone. Whereas for the disbeliever, rejecting God means that whatever is pleasing is good. They'll do whatever pleases them. So this life becomes a life of pleasure or seeking pleasure. Of course, the vast majority of people never achieve that. Who lives a life from the time that they're born till the time they die, where all they enjoy there is pleasure? No. Our lives, no matter how much a person commits himself to pleasure, he says, you know, I'm a playboy bunny or whatever, you know, this is my lifestyle, I want to be in pleasure all my life. It's not possible. The vast majority of people, it is impossible to do so. There are a few, small element that manage to do much of their lives in pleasure. However, they are a minority. The Hugh Hefners of this world are few and far between. The vast majority of people end up struggling most of their lives just to make ends meet, just to deal with their material life. You know, they have an element, only on the weekends people live for the weekend. You know, thank God it's Friday. You know, this is the kind of motto that people have. Friday, you know, we got the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, to enjoy, party, etc., then back to the drudgery of work. You know, you see it in the faces of the people as they go out to work in the mornings, you know, in the tubes, in the subways, in the buses. You know, it's a painful experience. That's life. It's not pleasure. So what we need to do is to realize that there is something greater, something, you know, worth striving for, worth going through these struggles for. Because that pleasure does only last for a minute, and then we're back into problems again, you know, back on the work, breaking our backs or whatever, trying to fulfill this to get enough money to enjoy. You know. Or when we get old, when we finally retire, you know, it will be time for vacation. This is now when we can enjoy life. But usually people who are so old then, they can hardly enjoy it. You know, it's the struggle. The sickness is going to hit them. You know, their bodies are breaking down. They have money now, but how to use it? They spend their money on their health. So we need to know where we're headed. You know, as Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. What is the end? It's paradise or hell. So if hell is our destiny, is our goal, this is what we're seeking, then of course we're going to focus on the things which will carry us there, the pleasurable things of this life. You know, as Prophet ﷺ said, you know, that the hellfire is veiled by desires. And paradise is veiled by things which our desires don't like, and things which we don't find desirable, things which are not that pleasant, you know. That's the reality. The hellfire is veiled by desires. حُجِبَتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ. So, if our goal is paradise, then we have to live a life in accordance with that goal. We have to live a life as if we're in a prison, controlled. We've created that prison for ourselves based on our belief that this world and this life is one in which we should commit ourselves to worshiping God. We should live a life accordingly. So we have to struggle against the things which, the forces of evil, which would break us free of that, which would remove the bars of the prison and throw us out into this world of pleasure and enjoyment, etc., where we lose track of our very purpose and end up in hell. In our previous session, we looked at how the media can make corruption appear good, focusing on alcohol, you know, because this is something which is strongly promoted in the media. I mean, intoxicants in general, but of course, cocaine, you know, and crack cocaine and heroin and these other things are sort of put down, but really what's the difference between them and alcohol? That's just a minor difference. Alcohol has been made permissible and allowable. In fact, they're struggling to make marijuana permissible in places like England and America. You know, you have elements that are trying to make it permissible. In some European countries, they do allow people to take it. You can go to cafes where you buy your marijuana and smoke up and, you know, enjoy. So the media tries to make these things attractive. The hard drugs tend to be, you know, downplayed, and, you know, there's a criminal activity connected to it and everything else, whereas alcohol, the soft drug, is basically promoted and encouraged, you know. And we talked about in previous sessions how it is really the source of much of the evil that is around us. Much of the evil has come out of intoxicants. There was a case of a man and woman just recently, just this year, it was in the newspaper. They were on a flight between New York and London. The man and woman, they're in first class, sitting next to each other. They don't know each other. First time they ever met on the plane. They're drinking alcohol. This hostesses provide them with alcohol. They get drunk enough. Next thing you know, they're involved in sexual activity right there on the plane. The people next to them in first class tell them, stop, stop. The hostess is coming trying to stop them, but they're intoxicated. They don't care anymore. Who cares? And the man was married. So was the woman. You know, when they got off the plane, they arrested them in London, etc. You know, for indecency, public indecency. Of course, from Islamic perspective, I mean, they both would have been executed. But back to our problem at hand, alcohol, followed by sexual deviation. Sexual deviation meaning where one goes outside the bounds which God has set, because some people might say sexual deviation means, you know, bestiality or pedophilia and these kind of things, but no, it includes fornication and adultery. You know, fornication and adultery, which from the Western perspective is no longer considered to be something bad, you know, because the principle which determines what is permissible between people, you know, sexual relations between people, what determines it is the principle of consenting adults. As long as the people involved are adults and they consent, meaning it's not rape, you know, it's not pedophilia in the case of, you know, non-consenting, then it's permissible, and the government or whatever has no right to get involved. Nobody has a right to say anything. That's the basic principle governing now activities, sexual activities between human beings. And of course, homosexuality is now promoted through that same channel. They say, we are adults. We are consenting. So why should we not be allowed to engage in our activities? It's just a matter of choice. You've chosen to go the homosexual route, the heterosexual route, and then we've chosen the homosexual route. This is the argument which is being used. And this is sexual deviation. People break away from revelation the guidance of revelation, which promotes, honorable relationships between husband and wife, etc., etc. Once people throw those aside, we say we want a secular society, meaning that religion has no role to play in this process. So when we compare marriage and we compare fornication, what's the difference? It's only a piece of paper. Religion says you need that paper. We're not into religion, so let's drop it. As long as people consent, they're adults, that's okay. So that creates havoc in the society. The number of illegitimate births now in the West, has reached, as great as the number of legitimate births. I mean, especially in certain age groups, especially in the teen and the early 20 age groups, the numbers of illegitimate children, in some cases, even outnumber legitimate children born in this age group. Where's the society headed? This is corruption beyond corruption. And this, of course, this way, when people live this type of lifestyles, etc., then they don't want to know about God. Because once you get into issues of God, God is saying, don't do these things. Don't do it, it's wrong. So if you want to do it, then you have to just put this thing of God aside. So this root, this desire which is played upon and encouraged and promoted in the movie industry and the novels and all these other kind of things, where adultery, fornication is made to seem attractive and beautiful to people, then it ultimately goes back and affects the foundation of the faith itself, where people don't want to have to deal with these issues of God, etc. I don't want to even think about it, as people will say. I don't have time to think about it. I'm too busy enjoying myself. So in this way, people, satanic forces have tricked people into forgetting God. The third big area that we were mentioned in the last program, we will be talking about in this segment, was that of music and singing. Music and singing. Now, this area, of course, Islam recognizes the nature of human beings to like song. A mother sings to her child. The child loves it. It soothes the child. The voice, very soothing. Everybody recognizes this. But Islam puts certain limits to it. Okay, mother singing to the child, young children singing for entertainment purposes of adults, etc., no problems. But adult females singing and adult males listening, this now is an area which Islam says no. Because that human voice is very attractive, very powerful, especially that of an adult female. It carries with it things that can stir up things within the males. That's why, Islam says no. Singing in this area, no. Furthermore, when that singing is accompanied by musical instruments, guitars and saxophones, pianos, and all these other kind of things, then this is also prohibited in Islam because of the way that these instruments tend to captivate the heart, to create an addiction in people for these things, so that when they feel bad, the first thing they will turn to is their favorite song. Turn it on. And I feel better now. It makes me feel good. It relaxes me or whatever. People are very much into that. Instead of turning to God, they end up turning to music. Music becomes like an intermediary, or actually something blocking their way to God. And music is everywhere. Music is everywhere. It has become so popular now, especially in Western civilization, you find, it's in the elevator. It's in the shopping centers. It's everywhere. It's in the barbershop. It's everywhere you go. You're going to buy your groceries, music is there. I mean, they've found it has this massive influence on people. So they've pumped it into our societies day and night. No room left to find any place of silence for silent reflection. Hard to find. Hard to find today. And it has its role in corruption. Has its major role in corruption in the sense that if we look at the most, the element of the musicians, they are among the most corrupt elements of the society, if not the most. I mean, you see the amount of corruption that exists amongst them, the drugs and things like this. If music was such a good thing, as some people try to claim, no, it's good, you know. Some kids will say, I can't study without listening to music. When I listen to my music, I'm able to study better. Why? Yes, because you're addicted. You know, just like a person who's addicted to cigarettes. If they don't have cigarettes, you know, they get the jitters, whatever else, then they have a difficult time studying, you know. But once they take a whiff and they smoke up and everything, okay, yeah, they can function well. It's because an addiction has been created, you know. And what is happening is that certain ideas now are the music scene becomes a means of promoting the intoxicants and of promoting sexual deviation. You know, this becomes the medium for promoting these substances. And that's when you look in the clubs, look what's going on in the discos, etc. I mean, what's linked directly to the music is the alcohol. People don't go to a club and dance around for all these hours and they don't drink alcohol. They think they're just drinking apple juice or orange juice. No. These things are closely related. The intoxicants and the music. You know, as they say, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, this is the life. This becomes the goal. And, you know, unfortunately, Muslims, I mean, even in their own areas which are more limited, you know, okay, we just have, you know, Quran, which is recited, males recite Quran, females recite Quran. But, you know, even in the area of females reciting Quran, where they're beautifying their voices, males are not supposed to listen to that. But now we even have Quran contests where females are up there performing for male audiences, you know. And again, this is a deviation. It's a step towards that corruption which is coming out of, you know, the Western civilization, and which has been embraced by much of Muslim civilization today. You know, not Islamic civilization in the sense that Islam opposes it, but Muslim civilization today has embraced it. You know, you can't, you know, you listen to all the Arab musicians and songs, and, you know, they've become experts in and of themselves, you know. And one may be very shocked to hear that Islam actually is opposed to these musical performances and songs and this type of things, you know, when it's so popular in the Muslim world. But that is because the satanic forces have succeeded in making this so attractive that the prohibition which has been handed down for generations has been overcome by popular demand. By popular demand. That's the bottom line. So when we consider music and singing, we consider it as one of the ways, one of the instruments used by the satanic forces to make sin appear beautiful. Songs may be about, you know, fornication or adultery, you know, encouraging it, promoting it, you know, a variety of other sinful things. It's not to say every single song is, but a lot of the songs are. And of course, some people may raise the thing, well, okay, we just listen to Bach and Beethoven, and, you know, we're into classical music, not that other stuff. Yeah, we know, we can see that other stuff, when people listen to it, you know, they're jerking their bodies in this way and that way, you know, very, very corrupt-looking things. Huh? Whether you're watching Hindi movies and what comes along with it, you know, or Western movies, you know, they all seem to be focused on very corrupt musical activities. But now we're listening to Bach and Beethoven. This is very, you know, classical music, etc. You know, but the problem is with this is that Bach and Beethoven, they were the pop music of the 18th century, you know, the 16th century, 14th century. You know, that was their pop music. You know, that's the reality. I mean, we now look at it back at it as classical music, but in their time they were dancing to it, and their corruption was being carried on in that media. So music and singing are areas which, you know, the society has to be very careful of, because it carries with it is one of the powerful tools by which corruption, you know, deviation from the true path, the natural path, the path prescribed by God, takes place. It is an instrument of the satanic forces, you know, a very powerful instrument, as it captivates the heart so easily. A person who has listened to a song as a child, young person, when they grow old, they may be in their 60s or 70s, and somebody only has to play a couple of bars of this song, a couple of lines from it, and then the person remembers the whole thing again. It's there as if they just heard it that same day. Why? Because it locks in on the heart. And the heart which is filled with this kind of satanic music and singing, that heart cannot at the same time hold the Quran, divine revelation, the beauty of it, etc. The two cannot coexist. One displaces the other. So from the Islamic perspective, we need to tackle this thing head on. As Muslims, remove it from our homes, from our communities, relegate it to an element which is limited within the Islamic framework, which is acceptable, whether it's the recitation of the Quran or some singing, etc., during weddings and Eids and things like this, accompanied only by the duff, that hand drum, and not to get caught up in a variety of other musical instruments, which end up becoming or end up being a part of the prohibited elements of music. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us in this segment of our program, The Forces of Evil. The Forces of Evil focuses on the satanic element in human society, whether it's from the world of the jinn or from our world. Those elements among us who have accepted the satanic way, they become the devils of this world. We have to be aware of them. We have to be aware of how they function, playing on our desires, how they promote corruption in the name of good, wholesome fun. With that, dear viewers, I now bid you farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.